Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and for the past few days I've been testing the Chris Wilson vision of +2 cleave range in the Lake of Kalandra patch, and it's not too bad. This currently what you're seeing is cleave as a two-hander using Void Forge, getting a decent bit of area into the build, and actually still not even utilizing the full +2 cleave range, because the gem is at the moment level 19, and level 20 is when I get my last bit of +1 range. So prior to last patch, or compared to last patch, this is essentially +1 range at the moment, +1 radius. So it will get a little bit better still, but long story short, cleave has a decent enough radius that it makes it kinda playable, I think. It is very, very similar to sweep, and basically the same skill, except that sweep does a circle around you while cleave is more directional and a slightly better area in that single direction. And then on top of that, it's got a bit better attack speed, so for single target damage it is actually a bit better than sweep, but otherwise sweep kind of feels a bit nicer for two-handing, I think. That said, I am building more into area with, I think, a divergent cleave, which has 40% area while using a two-hander, and the whole point was to just test out cleave, see if it can be a bit of a build and take you anywhere. And I think currently I'm a level about to hit 92, or maybe did hit 92 as a Slayer, wearing an Abyssus, and being somewhat defensive otherwise. I've died once at this point on the character, and that was to some lake bullshit. Actually, no, more than that in the end. At the end of the stream, did some more lake bullshit. So basically, like, tier 10 plus tiles, died to some boss that does some degens and shit like that. Anyway, other than that, gameplay's been pretty tight, and cleave has been doing alright. And Abyss is honestly not that big of a downside if you build around it at this point. Something you notice on screen now is the massive shrine and the cleave range. Looks pretty fucking crazy. Unfortunately, I think there is a bug with character size that increases the range of the cleave like this, but isn't actually representative of what the range is, because you can see it's basically hitting the edge of the screen. Cleave's range does not go that far when it has massive shrine. Like, it's going to be missing most things at that edge of the screen radius. So it's a bit deceptive in that, but yeah, it'd be nice if you could get cleave to that sort of range, and I think it might theoretically be possible with enough area, but I've already gotten about as much area as you can get without going overboard and sacrificing other stuff for it. So sadly, I don't think it's going to get much bigger than this. It can get a little bit more. Like I said, I'm still going to gain +1 radius, but I've already got like more area than you'd realistically get in a build typically, since I'm using Slayer area, I'm using Pulverize support, I'm using Void Forge, and my Void Forge has an area corruption on it. So it's already quite a lot. And typically, especially these days, you're basically investing almost no area in builds because they don't really need it, and you more focus on boss damage and single target as opposed to a bit of extra clearing ability. Whereas kind of the big problem with melee is you have a lot of things to fix, and then that takes some resources, and once they're fixed, that's when it feels proper good. So you know, it's a bit of a tangent, but yeah, the kind of issue with melee is that for it to feel good, you need to fix a lot of things: the tankiness, the DPS, the attack speed, the range, the area, yeah, all kinds of shit. And then finally melee's like, hey, that's not too bad. Whereas most spells kind of start out feeling pretty good fairly early on. This is a like tier 8 plus or something like that, beyond tile set at an 83 tier, so it's pretty thick stuff, and we can take that stuff on, so it's not too bad. And you can see that cleave can put in some pretty good work as a bit of a range and a bit of a defensive thing, but yeah, you still can't stand still for too long against this type of shit, especially when wearing an Abyssus. But I do have lots of Fortify. I've got the Leech node that gives reduced damage taken. I've got plenty of armor, Molten Shell. So yeah, I'm kind of thick against this sort of stuff, and it's not working too bad. As well as that, maintaining Rage from the new Combs gloves, and that lets me press Berserk every now and again. but mostly just using it for rage. So that's Cleave so far. It's been okay. It's a bit vanilla, like just been playing kind of a okay melee build up to now, nothing too special. Might not even play it for that much longer, but we'll just show you real quick what the character's built like. Maybe try some Ubers at some point and get absolutely fisted, because that is the destiny of a melee build against Ubers, but I don't know, fingers crossed, maybe they can do it a little better. So let me show you real quick how I've built the character. So here's the current character level 92 Slayer Vision of huge cleavage. Chris Wilson Vision, Cleave, Edge, Vision, Cleavage, yeah, you get it. We are dealing with Cleave Gem and a Void Forge. Of course, Void Forge, pretty damn good generic two-hand weapon that basically you just scale Fizz to get lots of elemental and then just care about the elemental damage. It's actually been quite a while since I've used a Void Forge, I think. I usually use it as sort of a, yeah, like, should be a good melee build type of item and character. It's been a while since I've used one just because I haven't really had much purpose to do a two-hand sword build, as I've done most of them, and I couldn't really bring too much interesting shit to the table. But in this case, two-hand cleave, haven't done that before, and some new tools and gadgets at my disposal. So here we are. We got ourselves Divergent Cleave, specifically went two-hand for the extra area here, 40% increased area while not dual wielding. Has a bunch of extra fizz to begin with, and 9 radius. Next level it gets an extra point of radius, so we're almost at that 10th radius, and overall it's going to get that 2 radius bonus compared to last league. A bit of a joke, yes. I'm not really sure why they looked at Cleave and were like, hey, it just needs 2 radius. Done. Bit weird, whatever. But at this stage, I think plenty of melee skills need a bit of more than just an extra radius or 2 or some shit. So that's something that might happen in the future. Either way, highly playable still. Nothing too special though. It's basically just, you know, a bit of a sweep sort of attack. And for it to feel good, you do have to fix attack speed to a certain degree. You do have to get some area. Prior to that, you feel like you're playing in a bit of a gimped version of plenty of melee stuff because you don't have much area and you're a bit slower. Like previously, I played Sunder a couple builds ago. That felt pretty good almost all the time because you got a nice big area. And it starts out really well. You know, you don't really have to do much in the way of scaling anything there except for get damage, attack speed, etc. So anyway, here we have Cleave attached to Multi-Strike. Early damage with attacks, which has Mana Leech on it because it's Divergent. Close Combat, Pulverize, and Trinity. I do have a Void Forge with extra area and attack speed. I corrupted this myself and then used Tainted Fusings. I don't think they'd be worth much at the moment anyway, but yep. So a bit of extra area thanks to the implicits that I made through just a random corruption. I then went ahead and wanted to use Comb's Spirit Gloves with Slayer technology, meaning that my life regen is disabled and instead I get a bit of life regen towards Rage. So currently I don't have much, it's like 1 per second or some shit, because I got like 100 life regen. And then Leech still works, so Overleech still works, meaning that I don't feel too gimped by not having any life regen. They are pretty cool gloves, and I can see their use in a few other builds, and I might reuse them pretty soon even. But yeah, it enables Rage. If you get enough life regen going, you can probably sustain Berserk rather cleanly, and you can see that it just ever so slightly fights back with Berserk at the moment, because I, like I said, have barely any life regen. I didn't really want to invest too much in that, but this is currently what it's looking like, thanks to this minor Pantheon node here. An extra 2% regen while stationary, otherwise I've got like 1% default. So these gloves are pretty cool, do enable Rage permanently. I then also went ahead and tried to fix attack speed through Spiritual Command, just like in the previous build, but just anointing it this time. I did have okay attack speed, but I wanted a bit more, so I went ahead and got Spiritual Command and then reused one of the rings from the previous build and then made a new ring for this character. So I just grabbed a Fractured Minion attack and cast speed ring, put attack quality on it, and then used Contempt Essences until something good happened, and this is where we're at. So even without a mirrored thing, it's just 20 bonus attack speed, which is pretty nice for a ring. Since previously the best you could get was like 7 or some shit, I don't know. But a good mirrored one. If you want a good mirrored one, you probably have to go out and make it after I've now talked about these, because they are a little bit pricier. But there you go, attack speed, cast speed, attack speed, cast speed. So it gives me in total about 60 attack speed, and then spiritual command, so close to 70 attack speed, and that does make melee feel quite a bit nicer to have that, so that you're not too locked in with multi-strike and your playstyle, and you can just get a couple attacks and then move on. So it feels pretty good to have this extra level of attack speed. Then grabbed boots that just have suppress, because I've capped suppress on this character. Grabbed a belt, rolled it, hunter influenced it, nothing happened with hunter influence, and then just rolled it using, I'm gonna say, serrated and pristine fossils, I think, and just a good little bit of a belt there. Running Abyssus with cleave area effect. Abyssus is pretty easy to counteract these days, I think, just with some determination, armor scaling, etc. The main weakness is going to be like physical damage over time, though. So there are things like bleed, but bleed's not too hard to counter. There's some other physical damage over times in the game, though, like various ground puddles or boss effects that might find you out. But overall, I mean, I got to like 92 with maybe 1 death from Lake, and it was mostly just the Lake that killed me. But yeah, it's pretty doable to just play with this thing comfortably, I think. And then a chest that I made from scratch, which actually looks kind of impressive, but isn't much, because I don't even need that reservation of efficiency. So essentially I grabbed a fracture there, and you can start with any fracture, life, armor evasion, or even just percent armor and evasion. And then I used loathing essences until I hit T1 suppress, because I needed to hit T1 suppress. It happened to hit fire res as well. I then just slammed on 129 life, as you do, using the exalted orb vision, and there it is. Currently I don't need that mana reservation efficiency, so it is a decent chest, but you know, it wouldn't have been too hard to make this thing otherwise. Since I really don't utilize mana reservation too boldly, and I can always spec this 1 extra point if I really needed it. But my mana reserve is currently just determination, purity of elements, and sand stance, blood stance. And I don't really have room for anything else, even though I would have liked to get like a precision, some shit like that. I don't really have room in the build for anything else, since I'm also using a hybrid 6-link totem, and the totem is Ancestral Protector, War Chief, and then multi-totem. Fizz damage, awakened, so it does some intimidate, life tap, so I don't have to worry about the mana cost and this shit, and multi-strike. They do like a couple million damage together, so they're pretty useful, and then they also buff me. But that's another part of huge problem with melee builds. You're way too reliant on these totems for extra damage and extra damage stats, which means that a lot of the time melee builds feel a bit more generic, because you are in the same sort of gameplay almost always. Like, place your totems, then do an attack, place totems, do an attack, and that's against anything that requires slightly better DPS, slightly better well-rounded melee character. Up till that point, you know, if you don't need the totems, then you just run in, do your attack, etc. But once things start getting tougher, you're pretty much always just pressing totems, and that just feels a bit lame having to always do that. And then if the totems are dying, you are pretty gimped in your abilities, since they do help quite a lot. So yeah, that's the character as a whole. We got Leap Slam, we got Berserk over there, just auras, and then Mark on Hit and Molten Shell. As far as passive tree is concerned, we are grabbing some Suppress, we are grabbing a Lethal Pride that just does some damage, basically. Fizz damage, strength, melee damage, 5 double damage, multi, and some multi over here. I'm scaling effective elements as much as I can without going overboard, because I am using Secrets of Suffering. So I've also got Sword Mastery, feels really good for Sentinel on Arch Nemesis. I grabbed Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh just to get the crit over here. It's pretty cheap, but essentially almost any of these you can just grab so that you can fill out the rest of the Slayer, so you can just get an extra point. So we've got Bane of Legends, Brutal Fervor for the Overleech, Endless Hunger, Impact, and then grabbed Overwhelm so that Void Forge has some actual crit. We then have all of the Fortify and shit, and the Cluster over here. Just needed to do something with 3 cluster points, so Feed the Fury, pretty damn good for Slayer. Martial Prowess, I've then got a Watcher's Eye just for Chaos Res, same one I used on the previous character, and then Secrets of Suffering that gives us Brittle, Scorch, and Sap, and they are at max effect on most content, but not all content. Probably not going to be too good against Ubers, but then again, the character probably won't be too good against Ubers because it's a melee. We'll have to wait and see, but I think it should be okay against just regular endgame. We'll find out pretty soon either way. The character MTX, if you're wondering, is Demonic, Wild Helmet, some new fucking sword thing, Blood Knight Wings, and then since we're always raged, got this red tinge to us, and then Divergent character effect. But if we take that off, still look pretty cool, and could even go gold. That's not it. That could even go gold, but yeah, having perma rage just changes the look of your character kind of nicely. But that's that for this so far. Pretty interchangeable build for other shit, you know. Lacerate, Cleave, Cyclone, Sweep. Sweep's probably going to be the best of the lot for overall, like, clear and stuff, but to know how it'll perform in endgame. I'll commit to Cleave for a bit, but I'll also fuck around with Sweep, I think, and maybe some Cyclone, see how things feel. For now, though, that is the +2 radius Vision Gaming Cleave. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.